Hi there, I'm Tim Irvine.
And I'm Stacy Irvine. Welcome to the Totum Wellness Podcast.
I'd like to welcome Sophie Bukovec to the Totum Wellness Podcast. Thanks for joining us. Sophie, you are a professional beach volleyball player and have been, I think, since 2018. Is that right?
Yeah, I guess roughly. Yeah, I don't even know the time I started.
A two-time national champion at USC, also two-time All-American at USC, World Junior champion. You are the founder of the Northern Elite Volleyball Academy. You're a cat lover.
Yes.
You've had amazing success in volleyball, obviously, with what we think is an incredible achievement, being part of a pair at the Summer Olympics in Paris this past year. So congratulations on that and all the other success.
Thank you. I think the last time that I was here, I actually corrected, I think it was you, Tim, when you acknowledged me and Heather as Olympians. And I was like, not yet. But now I can officially call myself an Olympian, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and not many people can do that. So big congrats to you on that. And then we've got many
questions. We manifested that.
Exactly.
Yeah,
yes,
right.
exactly.
That's right. Stacey's got question number one for you, but we've got lots to.
We have lots. I think we could spend hours. There's so many things. These are just amazing accomplishments that you've had over not a super long career. You're still very young. It's fantastic.
Thanks.
Let's go right to the Olympics.
Okay.
We've had your partner, Heather, on, and then we had the amazing sports psychologist, Dr. Dana Sinclair, on recently. Mm-hmm. We got their version of Paris. And to me, it's such an iconic place to have an Olympics, first of all. If you could choose, sometimes there are places where we're like, okay, Paris would be probably top of everyone's list. And the fact that they moved the beach right by the Eiffel Tower, so spectacular. Yeah. It was so gorgeous. Your pictures were beyond. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about top 3 highlights, maybe things that we don't know about, things that we didn't see behind the scenes, Athletes Village. Our listeners are always very interested in that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. When I get asked about the Olympics, a lot of the times right after the Olympic Games, a big conversation were the chocolate muffins.
Oh my God,
so those were kind of trending on TikTok and on Instagram. I think it was one of the Australian guys who, founded the chocolate muffins in the cafeteria, and they were pretty much just like a mini lava cake. And they were phenomenal. So I think that was a huge win.
I will say amazing. And do you think that's just because it's Paris that they maybe had better baked goods, pastries?
I will say that the food in the village wasn't necessarily phenomenal. It wasn't Michelin star, what you'd expect of Paris. You're feeding thousands and thousands of athletes that you would look for the lineup of all the 6'5" men and be like, that's where the protein is, know? But the chocolate muffins were just so exquisite. They did, however, have, and I guess this is my second thing, always on food, Heather and myself, they had a truck next to the coffee cart where at a certain hour throughout the day in the village, they would bring a Michelin star chef and they would have little snacks for you to be able to go.
That's incredible.
Yeah, so we had a croissant with it was like a poached egg in it with truffle. It was so, so delicious. So that part was really cool.
Wow.
And then I think the last thing, we didn't get our gear until we showed up because Heather and our qualification was so crazy.
Yes.
So we arrived to the village and we got into our room and there was just the Lulu suitcases on our bed. And it was a really cool and meaningful moment for Heather and I to just go through it and try it on in our really small room and, talk about sizing. And she was trying on my stuff and I was trying on her stuff. And we were just being so silly. And it really just felt like, okay, we're here. We're going to do this. Getting the kit, getting the stuff with the Olympic logo on it with the maple leaf was really impactful. Yeah. So it felt like we were finally there, that we made it. That
gives me goosebumps. Yeah. And the kits were pretty cool.
Oh my gosh. Lulu did such a phenomenal job with them. Anybody in the village knew exactly where the Canadian athletes were. And I had a couple of other countries be like, can we switch some gear? And I was like, no, absolutely not. I don't want any of your gear. I'm taking mine.
That's great.
Yeah.
That is such a fun part of it.
Like a bit of a Christmas morning sort of moment where you're like, this. And then I can imagine you pulling out these different pieces and going through that whole process. That's really cool.
And we had a little bit of a sneak peek, Lulu dropped what the collection would look like, but then there were so many little small things that you didn't anticipate to get. And we had these beautiful pins that were made for Lulu for the athletes. That pin trading is a big thing in the village. Mm-hmm. I wasn't sure if I was going to partake in it and somehow just got roped into it. But I was so adamant about not trading those pins because I just felt like they were so personal to the Canadian athletes. And I was like, when I look at my lanyard later on in life, I want to be able to like see those pins and recognize that, oh yeah, that was the 2024 games and it's impactful and meaningful. So
wonderful.
That's great. I've got a 2-part question for you. So obviously you're a great athlete growing up. You played soccer and then your sister convinced you that you should go the volleyball route, which is great. You end up at McMaster University. And I'm curious about how did you go from Mac to USC? Because that's not your typical pathway, I would guess, but I'm curious about that.
I think that that's the most typical phrase for me is, oh, it was so untypical. Like that was just such a, not the streamlined way to go about your career. And so when I was growing up, I was playing soccer and then I, took over onto the volleyball side. In my 18th year of volleyball, I decided to not play club volleyball. So it was at a time where the beach performance directors and the indoor teams were just trying to get me to choose between one or the other, between beach or indoor. And I wasn't sure what I'd like to do. I liked indoor in the winter and I liked beach in the summer. I still played for Team Canada in the summer and I felt like I could do both. But they kind of forced me to choose. And I knew that my success and my pathway was going to be on the beach side. So in my 18th year, I didn't play any club. And I was one of the only athletes, myself and one other male athlete, to be the first full-time beach volleyball athletes in Canada. Wow. And so this was me and 2 coaches at Downsview Park in a very gray indoor beach facility for an entire year.
It's right beside a hockey rink.
Yeah, the Scotia Arena. Yes, you know it well. Funny enough, I used to play soccer at the Hangar growing up. So Downsview has such a
Downsview
sport thing, right?
Is where it's at.
Exactly.
There's a lot going on there.
And so, as a young 17-year-old, you're like, I need team camaraderie. I need people around me. I need competition, right? I can't just be training for a whole year in a dingy gray facility. And so I reached out to McMaster University very late. It was probably the summer going into my first year. And I begged them. I was like, Tim, can you please let me onto your team? I'll come to open tryouts, whatever you need. And he was like, you're not coming to open tryouts. Like, I'll take you on the team, no problem. Right. And my older sister played soccer at McMaster. So it was really nice to kind of have family there as well. That's kind of why I was so tied to Mac. And then, I went through that year. We won the OUA championships as underdogs, had a really successful season, but I still felt like something was missing. And growing up, when I was playing youth volleyball, the club that I played for really prioritized and emphasized going to the States, right? Like, this is what you're going to get. This is this high performance-ness. This is what the US and NCAA is building. And so I kind of still was searching for that, and I didn't find that in the OUA. So I sent a terrible recruiting video. Kids are way more advanced now, but I felt like the Justin Bieber of volleyball, where I was getting recruited on YouTube. But I sent a terrible recruiting video to Long Beach State, actually, because they offered both beach and indoor. Right. So I was recruited to Long Beach State in my second year as a beach athlete prioritizing beach volleyball, but going to play indoor. So I was actually on an indoor scholarship there, and then ended up starting on the team and being kind of an impactful person for that squad. Had a bit of a falling out with that coach. And then I knew the USC coach from the Youth World Championships. And so I had reached out to a couple of other athletes at USC to see if the culture made sense for me and to see if it was a fitting place. And then I physically ran into Anna Collier at one of the AVP events. So at a professional beach volleyball event, physically ran into her. And I was like, please, can I come to USC? And she was like, okay, we'll find a way. And I'm pretty sure a donor donated my scholarship.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't know for sure, so don't take my absolute word for that. But I don't think that they had enough money for me to transfer into the spring. And so I think she just begged a donor to fund my scholarship. So
that's great.
And the rest is history.
And the rest is history. We won 2 national championships, 2 NCAA, 1 AVCA, so technically 3. One of which was the first ever NCAA championship. So
wow.
Yeah, it's going to be crazy years and years from now when they look at our, look at our uniforms and they're like, they're in shorts. Like, this is ridiculous. The way we look at basketball players from back in the day. And we'll always have that first, which is really cool.
That's exciting. Yeah. Was it stressful? It seems like you were having to move around a lot during school. And I'm assuming you're still in classes and you're still trying to get that done. Yeah. How did you manage that?
Yeah, I think the academic side kind of faltered a little bit for me. Like, I, as a young athlete, prioritized and really prided myself on my academics. Like, that was a really big part of my self-worth was athletics and then also my academics. They were hand in hand. And then when I was transferring to all these different schools, I had to take a very basic kind of undergrad in order to be eligible to play right on all of these teams. So I graduated with a sociology degree with a Bachelor of Arts. And now when people ask me what I studied, I say volleyball, which I think it's true when you ask, athletes who go to top NCAA colleges, not often are they also going to prioritize neuroscience or, something that's a little bit more strenuous. So
that's exactly what, we were talking about our kids and our tours down with some of the ID camps for soccer, for football, for hockey too, is that we've actually had calls for our kids because now this has all become privatized as well, right? You can go down to a prep school, especially for hockey.
Yeah.
And we would get calls where they would ask our son, they would say, "Do you like school?"
Yeah.
And the right answer is, "I don't care about school."
Yeah.
And when he says, "I like school, I have a high average, I care about school," you can actually hear the disappointment in the coach's voice. Because
young athletes, if you're listening.
Well, it's a really interesting piece. And I think it's really important to know because some of the schools that had approached him, it's not even a school.
Yeah.
It's a rink.
Yeah.
And then there's a common room with a long table where they bring a teacher in. And you don't necessarily get to that unless obviously you've toured the school. But a lot of people from Canada are going down into these situations. They don't have time or they don't have the resources to go tour the school and look at things. But I think it's a really interesting point that not all the schools down there are going to take care of your academics for you.
Absolutely.
They are paying for you to help them win volleyball games.
Absolutely.
In your case.
Yeah.
But school is a part of it, but it can come later too. That's kind of what we talk to our kids about, is that it's okay to have your sport as a priority right now because this is your time with your sport. And then later, you'll add more school or you'll add more academics or not if you're not interested in that. But it's interesting, what you went through was a lot of changes.
Yes.
We don't see a lot of students coming from a Canadian school and then right away go to the NCAA. Not in the sports that we deal with. So that's amazing. Obviously there was something on that YouTube video.
I think it was winning the under 21 World Championships in 2014. So that was the summer going into my second year. Where that just kind kind of like solidified that I could
put you on the map.
That I could play,
So which I just saw a really great clip. I can't remember what famous actor it is, maybe Harrison Ford or somebody like that. No, Steve Martin. And he's being serious. He's a comedian, but he was being serious about this. Like, how do you get to your level kind of thing? And his response was, you just be so good they can't ignore you.
Yeah.
And so people spend so much time about trying to navigate the system and this, that, whatever, and not enough time on, I'm just going to become excellent and have that mindset. It was a really interesting thing for me to hear, because when we apply it to, youth as an example, like that's a great way to focus on things. Is I just have got to take care of what I can take care of.
Absolutely.
It sounds like that was what your experience was. You didn't give them an option. You're like, you're on their map.
Yeah, I think, for younger athletes right now, like you were saying with the whole recruiting process, it's privatized, right? You have agents now, and there's certain tournaments that you have to go down to the States for. And there's all these different formulas in order for you to get recruited. At the end of the day, just be a really good volleyball player.
Yes.
Be a really good kid, be a really good volleyball player. Yeah, and like your name is going to be put in the mouth of the coaches that you're looking to impress, right?
Yes.
So just prioritize being really, really good at what you're doing, and then the rest will kind of take care of itself. Yeah. It did for me, at least. So
it is turning into a huge industry.
It is.
With the, like you said, like these showcases. Yeah. And then I also think kids who are good athletes up here are pitched these programs where you pay someone and then that person's going to go down, and there's never a guarantee. Yeah. And you do see a lot of families getting sucked into it with basically the athlete didn't really have a path.
Yeah.
But they wanted the money.
Yeah.
And it's such a tricky thing.
It's hard for parents to navigate because you want your athlete and you want your kid to be put in front of the right people, right? But you don't know who those people are. Mm-hmm. You don't know how, you get your kid in front of the appropriate people. And like you're saying, there's so many programs that seemingly do that, right? They're saying they're going to do those things for you when they might not actually.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of programs out there that really are just money grabs.
Yes.
Right.
Which is, it's
Absolutely.
unfortunate.
It is unfortunate.
Tough for parents.
It's taking advantage because there's no rules right now. It's a bit of the Wild West right now.
Yeah.
I also think what you spoke to is interesting, which we are seeing too, is when you go down and you see those facilities and you see those schools and you see the crowds that they draw, and then you play up here at our universities, it's quite different.
Yeah.
And the expectation, it's interesting, the words they use were, I felt like something was missing. And I do see that in a lot of the athletes up here. You have the academy now with the girls. Is it just females?
We actually introduced a men's program last year. So we do men's as well.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Do you find that, are you having that conversation? Is it the same with that group?
Yeah, I think, with the Northern Elite, what we're trying to do is pretty much bridge the gap between youth sport and post-secondary and professional level sport.
Right.
And that starts from the grassroots, right? Like, how are you holding yourself in practices? What are the expectations? What's being provided in that program? So for us, we have a media day for them, right? I was like, I want you guys to get in front of cameras and to have to do like a turning the ball in front of the camera video. They're not necessarily doing interviews and stuff as of right now, but we may introduce that a little bit just for our social media. They're doing video analysis. They're doing strength and conditioning. We have a trainer who comes in who will be doing conditioning with them once a week. So we're trying to get them ready, even just to get a little bit of a snippet of what they should expect, so that when you go down, you're not just completely shocked, right, at what the expectations are of you. And again, anything we do here, it's still going to be tenfolds when you go down to the States, depending on the type of program you want to go down to. But if it's a top D1 school, get ready. Yeah. Like, you're not, you think you're ready, you're not ready.
Yeah, that's interesting.
It's a whole job. Like, you're technically doing 2 full-time jobs with being an athlete and then also prioritizing academics. But again, if you're at a good school, they don't let you fail. They have support, they have resources. There's a lot of people who want to help when you go down to the US if you just ask for it. So, because again, you're an asset to their school. So they really want to support.
Was there some stress around that decision of having to choose between indoor and beach? Because you're a young athlete at that point, right?
Yeah, there was tons of stress. Like, I still to this day, I'm so grateful for all the opportunities that I'm given. But I said to my mom and to my boyfriend yesterday, I was like, I don't want to make decisions anymore. Like, I really just want somebody to tell me what to do. And I don't want all of these options. And I know it's such a blessing to have them. But I'm like, I'm done making pros and cons lists in my brain about what I'm supposed to do next. And that was similar to my experience as a youth athlete. Like, I didn't know if I was going to be successful on the beach. I thought I had all the tools, and I was a realistic person, right? Which is why I chose beach over indoor. I'm a little undersized to be playing indoor at the top level. And our Canadian team at the time wasn't really in the route to qualify for the Olympic Games. And that for me was always a focus and a priority. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to go beach route. I'm going to lose a ton of money doing it, but I'm going to go to the Olympic Games and it's going to be really cool. And so that's kind of what anchored my decision, I would say, is just really self-reflecting, being really honest with yourself, which is really hard to do sometimes. And then just sticking with it. Whatever you decide, stick with it. And what I try to tell a lot of younger athletes is the door isn't officially closed, right? If you commit to something and you go full force into it and you give it everything you have, great. But I'm still contemplating going to play indoor now. Maybe I'll go play overseas now. Maybe it's not done. Maybe that part of my chapter isn't completely closed. So, weigh out the pros and cons, but that door is never completely closed, is what I will say.
So you're undersized for indoor.
Yeah. I think I'm undersized
incredible.
for beach, but I'm not. But
Wow.
I jump well now.
Okay.
Whereas when I was a young athlete, I still jumped okay, but not enough to really excel at the top level. And I knew that just watching film and, again, being very realistic and honest with myself. But I put a lot of work into the gym, and now I'm confident that if I were to play professionally or play for our national team, that I could hold my own.
All right.
Yeah.
I love that. How tall are you?
I'm 6 feet. Yeah.
Undersized for indoor.
When I went to the NCAA, I was one of the smallest outside hitters.
Really?
So
what's an average height for that position?
6'2" to 6'5", I would say roughly now, unless you're a jumper, right? So now I'm touching probably 10'8".
Yeah. So
which
now
is significant.
You've made that gap kind of irrelevant with the height, because now you can jump to the same level.
Exactly.
Which is phenomenal.
Yeah, thank you.
Hard training. That's
thank
great.
you.
I love to hear that.
Thanks.
Going from the indoor, I'm interested in, you know players when you're playing at a high level, you all know each other generally. And you reached out to a few of them who were playing on a team that you wanted to be on. And you said, I want to be on that team. Of course, they're building a good team of a large number of players.
Yeah.
Then you switch to beach. All of a sudden, it's 2.
Yeah.
And you're against the other players that you know.
Yeah.
Including the other pair from Canada.
Yes.
How does that go? Because I know you travel together, you do all the things together. And I'm used to this, obviously, from track and field.
Yeah.
We do team relay, but then we're racing against each other. Yeah. And I just think that the dynamic of being in a big team, but then a team against a team is very different.
Yeah.
How does that work?
On the international level, so for Team Canada, we're trying to change that actually this year. We just had our Team Canada induction camp, but we're trying to build a little bit more of that team culture, right? So it's like a big team focus.
That's
where
great.
You're trying to support all these little, mini teams, mini pairs. Whereas previously, everything was about results.
Right.
Everything was, if you're winning, this is what you get. And so that creates a lot of toxicity, right? Because you're constantly fighting for a very small portion of the pie. There's not enough to go around for everyone. So it's like dog eat dog world. You're not always going to support the teams that are doing better. There's a little bit of animosity. There's a little bit of jealousy that comes with that. So we're trying to shift that culture. Now we have new personnel that have come in, both with the athletes and the staff. So we're trying to kind of change that culture piece.
For Canada?
For Canada as a whole, both on the men's and the women's side, and just propel everyone forward, right? Like our teams are doing so exceptionally well, and they have over the past 10 years, like 8 to 10 years, we've really put Canada on the map. And now it's about not doing it alone, right? Like our top team who won silver at the Olympic Games trains out in LA. So they're not often in Toronto, but what are you guys doing out there that we can bring here, right? When you're on tour, how can I support you? Is it coming to your matches? Is it, all of us going out to a dinner? Like just figuring out a way to be a little bit more like wholesome together. And I think, playing in the NCAA, we had pairs of five pairs that would compete. So the way that it works in the NCAA is similar to tennis, where 10 athletes compete. So 5 pairs, 5 of 2, and you have to win 3 out of the 5 to win the duel.
Got it.
So you're competing against each other in practices and sometimes in pairs tournaments, but you're competing as a team, even in your pairs. So you have to learn how to, go head to head in practices and sometimes in tournaments. But then at the end of the day in the national championship, you want 3 of your 5 pairs in order to win. So it creates a really interesting dynamic there as well.
Yeah, that is fascinating. And do you feel to me like you're a very competitive person and that you like that? And you said you grew up in a family filled with competitive athletes, which I think does really help build that spirit in you that the game is on. And then when it's not on, we all love each other after the game. Do you think that you excel in that competitiveness? Do you think that's one of your skills in volleyball?
It's interesting because I usually say that I'm not a very competitive person. Like I don't love board games. I don't love cards, things like that. For me, it's more problem solving.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I think, a lot of people have asked me what my why is, and I love the moments I surprise myself. And I think that's kind of what keeps propelling me to want to do better and kind of excel in my sport. It's not because I want to necessarily win the game. Of course I do, but that's not like the driving factor of why I play. It's more so, oh, I just did that. That's really cool. How do I make that my benchmark? How do I supersede that? So it's more like an individual challenge versus like competing against someone else. And I think a part of that has to do with having 3 other siblings that are very competitive. My brother and sister, my twin sister, their whole self-worth is over Monopoly games. Like tables are being flipped and like it's not safe. It's not safe in my house. Me and my older sister are like, guys, come on, it's fine. You're going to be okay if you don't win this Monopoly game. Still don't think we finished a game of Monopoly in my house. But so I think seeing that and growing up with that, I was kind of like, I don't know if I really want that to be what my identity is. So
And are you on the younger side of?
I'm the youngest of the 4.
Youngest, but you have a twin.
Yeah, she's 3 hours older than me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know my poor mother's a saint. I know. I know.
That is fantastic.
Yeah.
I think that is amazing. You worked with Dana Sinclair this year. We talked about that and we had a great day with all of you here and it was so fun and we learned a lot of things about your process. I'm wondering, when you're talking with maybe some of your young volleyball players, what things stood out to you the most that you did different from a mental training perspective to get to Paris and compete in Paris?
Yeah, I think working with Dana has kind of shifted my mentality and my mindset of how did you do a good job? Like what quantifies you doing a good job? Previous in my younger kind of adolescence career, it was, okay, well, how did it feel? Right? Like you're learning a new technique, but how did it feel? Dana's like, I don't care how it feels. Like, who cares about how it feels? Did you get the job done well enough? Right? Like it doesn't need to hit the perfect corner when you're making that high line roll shot. I don't care if it hits 6. Did it go down? Right? Like, is the ball scoring? And so I think when you're a young athlete who's a perfectionist, which a lot of high performance athletes are, you're trying to get that like 0.01% of a shot consistently.
Right.
Not very many people can actually achieve that. So she kind of shifted the mentality to, okay, but is it good enough?
Like get the job done.
Did it get the job done? I don't care how it feels. I don't care if you have confidence that's made up, right? Like, did you do the job? Did you execute what you said you were going to execute? Great, thumbs up. You did the thing.
So not pretty, but effective is much better than pretty, less effective.
Absolutely. And I think that's a really hard thing to kind of shift when you grow up being taught that like everything has to look good and feel good and has to hit that like 0.01% shot or chance. Yeah. And now I'm just kind of like, I don't care if I have to kick it over the net. Like if I have to...
Can you?
I don't know how successful. I don't know how many times,
Bicycle kick.
Right?
You can
been
work
done.
towards that.
It's been done.
Oh my God.
It's been done. So yeah, that's kind of just how
that's an interesting point. And I do think social media makes it even worse. Yeah. Because again, I'm thinking through, the athletes that we work with, they look at the clips after and they are going for the clips.
Yeah.
They're going for the goals that look spectacular. They're going for the diving catches that look amazing, or whatever play looks great. Yeah. I'm quite sure it's in the back of their mind now a lot more than it used to be, because we didn't used to get to see videos of ourselves all the time. Yeah. It's very different now. Yeah. And I love that idea of a goal is a goal, a point is a point. Yep. Get it done.
Just get it done.
Just focus on getting it done, because it also opens up many more options for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Doesn't have to be this hit in this way, in this, that we've worked on all this time. Exactly. It's just like make the ball hit the ground on the other side.
Yeah, exactly. And, there's not very many opportunities where you're always going to be in a perfect situation. I think especially in beach volleyball, where you have wind, you have conditions, it could be raining, you could be injured. Like Heather was throwing up in fetal position in the Philippines because she got sick, and I've sprained my ankle in our Olympic qualifying event. So there's so many things that will happen along the way and during your career. And you can either be like, oh, well, I'm not 100%, which means I'm probably going to lose, or you just solve the problem, right? So if Heather can't move, great. Well, what do we do? You're going to set me up on 2 and I'm going to try to attack it the best that I can, right? So you're, again, having more things in your tool belt to be able to still succeed even when things aren't super pretty, because they're not always pretty. Instagram makes it seem like it is, but it's not.
Of course. Now, so to get to the level that you're at, based on what you were just talking about, do you see specific traits that professionals or elite Olympians have in your sport that are common across the different countries that you and people that you participate with and against?
What's coming to mind just off the top of my head is there's like not a laissez-fairness, but a calming presence about them, especially after they lose points. I think there's just like a get ready for the next thing that's really obvious in the top level, where of course they always say don't dwell on stuff and you only have a certain amount of time for us between each point, but it's how fast they react to the thing that happened and then how quickly they can come back to what's happening next. So it almost feels like there's this, like I said, laissez-faire, whatever, like move on to the next thing because you know what you're capable of and what you can bring to the table. Other than that, I'm not sure.
And based on your experience with Dana, is that something that her work with you and Heather has helped, or was that sort of more natural for you? Sounds like based on what you said about problem solving, that you came by that fairly naturally, but did she have an influence as well?
I think Dana had a big influence when it came to allowing myself and giving myself grace after things didn't go my way, right? So after a point, you don't always have to be positive. Like there's this toxic false positivity that a lot of young athletes right now are being taught, right? Oh, you can't make that face after you make an error. Yes, you can. You can be upset at yourself for whatever just happened, but how quickly can you reset and kind of get prepared for the next thing? So for me, I talked to Dana that I hold a lot of stress in my hands when I play. And so there's times where if I'm really frustrated or really angry, or if like there's a trend or a negative dip in our performance, I'll go and I'll grab sand. My face will look completely fine, but I'll go pick up sand and I'll squeeze it in my hands as hard as I possibly can. And then I'll release it. And that tension of my hands, that sand kind of falling to the ground is like a reset for me.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, it's again, just having her acknowledge that you can give yourself grace and that you can be upset for that one moment and scream and do all the things, especially as a female athlete. A lot of the times we're not allowed to make emotions, or we're not allowed to outwardly show that we have emotions. And I'm like, no, I'm a high performance athlete. We all are in this category. So that's been really helpful.
That's amazing.
That's such a good tip, actually.
Really good tip.
Because you just found a solution that works. It's fine. The sand is going to be fine.
Yeah.
We joke with our young hockey player, do not hit your stick on anything because they're too expensive.
Yeah, that will break.
The sand is a great one. And it's finding whatever that is is manageable in that period of time and then letting it go. I
know a lot of athletes that clap for volleyball. You'll see a lot of clappers. A lot of people will look at our hug count in beach volleyball and they're like, why do you guys hug so much? I'm like, we're playing at 50-degree heat. Yeah. We just played a 40 second rally. I need to breathe. Yeah. So there's been a time where I hug Heather and in her ear, I will be like, wait longer, hold me longer. Because she can like feel my heart like this. And so she'll just embrace me, kind of bring down that nervous system a little bit. And then I can go on to do what I have to do next. But there's been moments where I'm like, don't let me go.
That's such an interesting piece that's so unique to volleyball. And even the indoor, the celebration after. And I never thought about it as a pause, because if you're not used to watching volleyball and you see all that celebrating,
you're like, they're all shaking hands so much.
What are they doing? Yeah. Like, okay, it was a good play. I don't know. Was it that good? And you're kind of, I think for lots of people that haven't played the sport, it's an interesting piece because you don't see it in a lot of other games, but it's also part of the strategy, which is
totally. I think there was also a study done, and don't quote me on this, but it was talking about basketball teams in the NBA and just their likelihood of success when it reaches playoff time with more physical touch with their teammates.
Yes.
So you're talking about connection and, doing it for your teammate and for yourself. And there's, again, that team camaraderie. So in volleyball, we don't lack that, I will say. But it's something that is addressed from coaches to teammates. Like, this is what we do. This is how we celebrate. This is why we celebrate. Look each other in the eye. Like, I know you've made a mistake. It's okay. Look me in the eye. Don't have your head down. So that way you're ready to move on to that next task. So
it also feels like these are, a lot of our listeners are not necessarily Olympians or elite athletes, but these are skills that anybody can use, right? So you get really frustrated with something at work. And we've said to our kids, it's okay to be mad. Just don't do something really stupid, rash. Exactly. Deal with it, accept it. I'm mad about this thing, and then move on. And I think in, an office culture, or if you're at home, or relationships with driving, that matters. Like, I don't know what's going on with those other people. And so how do we get frustrated? It's okay. Now let it go, acknowledge it. I think it's an amazing skill to have.
It's an interesting thing from human connection, life skill piece, because we have this conversation all the time. We manage a big team here. And if I need something done and I send an email to someone, so I'll give you a good example, would be, I have a new client. Are you okay to take them? Do you have time in your schedule? Our trainers are very busy. The response on email is generally, I'm too busy. Okay. If I ask in person, eye to eye, right with them, the response is generally, I will try to figure that out and try to make it work. And we just entered a really busy time at work. And we actually just had this conversation after we're slow learners. We've been doing this for like 30 years. And then you go through COVID, right? Where you're never allowed to talk like closely person to person. So we've all kind of been trained, like, give everybody space, make sure everyone feels okay. You're not up in anyone's business about anything.
Right.
And we had a conversation just recently where I said, so much of this needs to be done in person, face to face. We're so much more effective in person together. And I look at what you just explained with the volleyball is like the next level of that. It's fascinating.
Yeah. I think what's really cool is, especially in beach volleyball, you have to learn to have such intense conversations. For Heather and I, it was in such a short amount of time. So everything was expedited like tenfold. Right. So everything was on
a tight timeline.
Exactly. But then in my college career, you're stressed with school, you're stressed with relationships, right. You might be missing home, right? Like you're training for the first ever NCAA championship. There's stress there. Yes. You're at a big academic and athletic school. So how do you manage all of these different stressors? And I remember my coach sat us down and was like, if you guys are feeling some type of way, just yell it at practice. Like yell that you're frustrated, because everyone else knows that you're frustrated. But now you saying it out loud, everyone can laugh about it, right? Or even if they don't, they already know. Now they know that you know, okay, we can just move on from it. So just being comfortable with your teammates or with your coworkers or whoever to just go up to them and be like, hey, I'm really frustrated right now. Maybe they'll stop asking you that dumb question that they're going to ask you in 15 minutes. So just acknowledging what you're feeling, being transparent about it, even though it's hard, but the more you do it, the easier it kind of gets, because then they can help you. They're not mind readers, right? They don't know unless you tell them.
It's great in a team environment. Well, it's good individually as well. Yeah. I've got one last question for you. Sure. So, I think you've had this amazing experience being in the Olympics. What is a day in the life like? Let's say 3 weeks before the Olympics, pick a day. Yeah. What did that look like?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. 3 weeks before the Olympics, I think we were at our pre-qualifying event in Mexico. Oh my gosh, which was
I didn't realize it was that tight.
It was 3 weeks.
It's really tight.
We were the last team for beach volleyball to qualify for the Olympic Games. Yeah, it was 3 weeks prior. No stress. I had a sprained ankle, won in our quarterfinal, and still had to find a way to come out on top and win that tournament. But I think it was just following through with what our daily routine looked like and not adding more stress to it because there's a big event coming up. And that's something that Heather and I really spoke about was, okay, we go to practice like we normally do. We have breakfast like we normally do. We have strength and conditioning. Okay, it might not be as aggressive, or maybe it is depending on the time frame, but just doing things that we would normally do and not making it like, oh my gosh, in 3 weeks, we're going to be at the Olympic Games. Like, chill, going to be fine. Let's just do what we've practiced and what we normally do, which is work out, eat well, talk to Dana, our mental performance coach, because you obviously can't be oblivious to the fact that you're going into a major competition. But try not to do anything that's super different, because that actually might disrupt your routine a little bit.
Sure, the routine is important for just the sort of psychological stability.
Yes, absolutely.
And is it, so you eat healthy, we know that. We know you both love food. Yeah. That's fantastic.
Team carbs.
Fantastic. And how much sleep would you get in those?
I'm a big sleeper. Yeah, I'm a big sleeper. I'm like a 10 to 12 hour normally. Wow. And then post Olympics, I spent 2 months in Romania. My boyfriend's playing pro overseas there. I think I slept between 12 and 15 hours.
Oh my God.
Like consistently for almost 2 months. He was like, are you ill? I was like, no, I think I'm just finally coming down from everything. Yeah. Like maybe not even just the Olympics, but prior to that, right? Like my silver medal at World Champs and then getting broken up with. And like there was a whole bunch of stuff that had happened in 3-4 years that I hadn't had time to really process or sleep because of. And so it just all happened.
I love to hear
months.
That.
Yeah.
10 to 12 leading up to the Olympics.
Like to this day, from when I was young, my bedtime is 9:30. Anywhere in the world, it's about 9:25 and my body starts to do this. No matter where I am. I could be in China, different time zone, doesn't matter. I'll look at my phone and be like, yeah, that makes sense. 9:30, I'm in bed.
Okay. Yeah. And then after the Olympics, like we don't expect you out at the clubs or anything. Yeah. Like you're still very much like, no. 9:30, I'm out of here.
Yeah, I'm trying to this year give myself a little bit more grace with just enjoying life in general, just because you give so much to yourself, to your sport. So Heather and I had a conversation just prioritizing our relationships and prioritizing family and just doing the things that we want to do and picking the tournaments that we want to do versus having to go from Brazil to fly to the Philippines. And we had to do everything possible to qualify. Now we have the luxury of choosing a little bit more. So just being on the same page about what this year looks like.
Well, I think hearing the volume of sleep for any of our listeners is a huge wake-up call. And obviously, there's a lot of recovery in that. So physical recovery, psychological recovery in that additional 3 hours of sleep that you'd be getting compared to normal. But what do people here get? It's like the average is like 6.5, and they think that, I'm fine. And you're just running on adrenaline. That's all you're doing.
I am not a nice person when I don't sleep. Like, I don't get hangry. I'm like, if I don't get my at least 9 hours, like 8 to 10 hours, I'm not a nice person.
You get sleepery.
Yeah, seriously.
That's
I'm like,
the new
don't
term.
talk
I just
to me.
invented that term, sleepery.
And then if you add that I'm hungry and I'm cold, don't talk to me. Like, keep away from me.
When you were at university, did you manage that?
Yeah.
You managed 9 to 10.
Yeah.
And plus.
Yeah.
And I guess caught up on weekends maybe. Because that is not easy.
I think, my group of friends that I surrounded myself with were all very like-minded. Of course, there are days that you want to be a college student and go out and do all those sorts of things. But we were all very much on track with, we're going to be national champions. Right. What are we going to do to be national champions? Okay, great. You need to prioritize sleep and you need to prioritize academics. Our team was very smart as well. Yeah. And then just finding ways to manage your time, right? Like, when are you doing your academics? Get the assignment, start it then. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Don't wait 4 weeks from now when it's due and then panic and have to pull an all-nighter, because that's not my jam.
I think that message as well for people is like, you want to accomplish something, whatever it is that you want to accomplish. If there are people around you that are preventing you, it doesn't mean that you don't be friends with them. But to your point, surround yourself with the right sort of people to help drag you along to that eventual goal that you would like to achieve. Because
absolutely,
it can be very difficult otherwise.
Absolutely. I don't know what the actual percentage is, but you become a combination of the 5 people that you hang out with the most. Yeah. So who are those 5 people that you're seeing consistently, and what do they bring to the table? And I think as a young adult, like, I've had to transition what my friend group actually looks like. And I met a lot of great friends over COVID that are all ex-pro basketball players. And they each bring something to our group that I want to aspire to do. So whether it's get out of my comfort zone and network a little bit more, great. I have a friend who's an expert at that. Let me watch her do that, and then I can just pick up some information, right? So surrounding yourself with those people. And also a learning lesson is go to people for certain things and know who those people are, right? Like, I'm not going to go to my eldest sister for any type of confidence boost. No way. She's going to go and tell me like it is, and she's going to give me life advice. If I need a pat on the back, I go to my twin sister, right? So I'm not expecting things of my eldest sister and then getting frustrated when she's not capable of giving me that, because I know what she's going to do. Yeah. So I'm not going to put her in that situation. Same thing with my friend group. So
that's such a great strategy.
Yeah, just know their roles a little bit.
Know their roles, and 5 is a manageable number.
Yeah.
So that's good too, because there are probably 5 separate things that you really need help with on whatever day, whatever happens to be going on. Speaking of that, what is coming up next for you? So we've got the academy.
Yes.
Let's talk about specifically what age, what are we looking, who's going to be in the academy?
Yeah,
what are we looking for?
We range from 14 to 18U. Okay. We get mostly like 16U, 17U athletes.
That's great.
But for me, I don't categorize by age. I don't care if you're a 14-year-old and you're kicking my 18U's butt, you're going on that court. Like, I don't categorize by age. So right now it's doing a lot of recruiting. We're kind of transitioning our platform in terms of who we let into the program a little bit differently this year, where I'm taking a little bit more of the onus and ownership to go out and recruit athletes. So whether that's creeping them on social media or going to different tournaments and having conversations with them and their parents afterwards, because I can send you a proposal via email, but unless you're getting that face-to-face with me, you don't really know what we're trying to build.
It's really valuable.
So I want them to know I'm passionate about it. I want them to know that I'm going to try to take care of their son or daughter. And then I also get to pitch like my NCAA contacts and all of that kind of stuff, which is a benefit.
It's huge.
Yeah.
And where are you training out of?
Ashbridges Bay. So here in Toronto.
Great.
Yeah.
And are you training, so is it mainly beach, or are you doing indoor as well? This is mainly
beach. We've tried to dabble in the indoor space, but there's just too many programs and too many clubs. And this is something really niche to me, and especially doing everything you can for volleyball in North America. This is something that I can kind of excel in. So I will also say that we're trying to organize carpool options for parents. Because guys, driving in Toronto is a nightmare.
It's a nightmare.
So in our registration form, it's where in the GTA do you live? Because if you're all from Mississauga, great. How do we get one parent to drive on a Monday?
That is so smart.
Let's go clubs, all these other people. We need to start formalizing some carpools. So
I love that.
You know who doesn't care about that? A hockey coach.
The GTHL. They really don't care about
soccer,
that
hockey, all of it. I get it.
They don't care at all.
Nope.
Okay. And then professionally, other than that, what's happening? What are your plans?
Yeah, so this year, Heather and I are still playing together. We're still a team. We're going to try to qualify for the World Championships, which are in November in Australia, which is really exciting. Yeah, so we're kind of taking this year to try to qualify for that, do all the other things that are outside in life. And then next year, we'll kind of see what happens. I know Heather is likely not going to do a quad, so she's not going to try for LA, as she says. I can send her a groveling text message 3 years from now. That might happen. So I'll kind of have to transition and look at partnership options. And Heather's been amazing and offered her help to help me find somebody that fits the team. So yeah, back to the drawing board after this year. So
fantastic. We manifested Paris here. So let's manifest LA here
do
too.
It.
No question.
Why not?
Let's do.
That is very exciting.
Yeah, thanks.
So nice to have you.
Yeah,
what a great
for having me.
conversation.
Thank you for joining us. It's been such an illuminating conversation, and you've hit on some really, really important nuggets that I think that everyone can benefit from, regardless of whether they're an elite athlete or not. It's really helpful for people. That's why we do this.
Amazing. Yeah, it was great chatting with you guys.
Thank you. Thanks for listening to the Totum Wellness Podcast. Please follow us on Apple, Google, or Spotify and leave a 5-star review and comment. Subscribe to us on our YouTube channel, and please spread the word to family and friends.